Welcome to the Sultans of Sales podcast. I'm your host, Jamil Pendleton. My friends call me Jay. Today on the show, we have a very special guest, Mike Monovoukas from Boston, Massachusetts. Mike is the CEO and co-founder of AcuityMD. And Mike, we met, about a year ago, and just been fascinated with you and your story and the team and the product and this company that you have. And so I'd love to dig into that. I think that's going to be a fun discussion today. But first, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? Just kind of like introduce yourself to those that may not know you. And again, thank you so much for carving out some time today. Welcome.
Yeah, of course, Jay. It's great to connect. A big fan of the work that you're doing. So I'm lucky and fortunate for this opportunity. I'm excited to dig in and share a little bit more about what we're doing at AcuityMD. So, my background, I started, the first job I had out of college, I was actually a medical device entrepreneur. So I had a hardware, it's called the Wound Stylus, and we were building this optical pen that would essentially record movements on the human body. And so the use was for plastic surgery and wound measurement for diabetic foot ulcers and pressure sores. And, so we were developing this product, kind of getting it through clinical studies, trying to raise money.
Sure.
I was out there trying to sell. That was my first experience selling to, nurses
Nice.
and surgeons. And that's how I got started in the industry. Ultimately, that company failed, but I learned so much about the entrepreneurial process and journey. And decided it was time for a change, went into management consulting and worked at Bain & Company for about 7 years, all in all, doing, commercial strategy for MedTech companies.
Oh, nice.
So, that's where I got kind of the big business exposure to how commercial strategy worked. And, we worked on product launches and segmentation initiatives and, how to help sales forces target effectively. And that's really a crux of the work I did at Bain. And, had another entrepreneurial bug in the middle of that 7-year stint. And I went and joined at the time was a 7-person startup in Boston called Patient Ping. They were just acquired. They got to about 150 people. So got to see them scale. What they were doing is aggregating data on hospitals and providing it almost like a Twitter feed or a Foursquare feed to primary care physicians. So, keeping tabs on when patients got admitted to out-of-network facilities and, helping coordinate care. That was a big workflow. So anyway, my career has always been at the intersection of med tech, commercial strategy, and healthcare data and healthcare software. And so, really excited about the opportunity we're building at AcuityMD. And it was really born as a result of those life experiences. I think, our big mission is to accelerate access to medical technology. And we believe through data, we can empower frontline field-based sales organizations to, find opportunities more effectively and accelerate, patient access to new technologies.
No, that sounds great. I mean, I certainly kind of have a geek out on this stuff because I've been around, whether you want to call it CRM, customer relationship management platforms, for my whole career in sales, right? I mean, we talked about this at IBM. We used Siebel, and then, of course, Salesforce.com. I launched that for 2 previous companies and was kind of on some pilot teams. And, really, there was always seemingly something that was missing. And so it's exciting to know that there's someone with a med tech background, and some of your, people on your team have different but similar experience in the industry that is approaching this very topic of how to grow your business, how to dice up a territory, right? And through data and smart, software. And so let's talk about, tell the audience more about AcuityMD. Would love to just kind of dive in right there.
Yeah, awesome segue. I think, the one thing I'll say about AcuityMD before going into, the details is it's really, we're a company built by and for the med tech industry. And right now we're only at about 35 employees, but 8 of them, carried the bag in some capacity, not including my entrepreneurial endeavors. Yeah. 8 of them carried the bag in some capacity for med tech companies. And that includes not just our sales reps and customer success team, that also includes some of our software engineers who worked as, medical device reps in another life. So, we've really built this solution in our DNA to serve the med tech industry. So that's kind of first and foremost. A little bit about the company. We're building a targeting platform for med tech, and we believe that targeting is kind of the core to all CRM workflows. If you're not driving growth and you don't have software or data that is focused on providing insights to help reps grow their pipeline, win more deals, and save time in that process, then all CRM solutions will break down eventually. So we're starting from building a targeting platform. And so what that means is a sales rep logs in and they are able to get insights about where to target, who to target, and how to target them. And that's a little bit about AcuityMD. We've been around for about 2 years, so still pretty early stage. A year ago, we were about 13 employees, and now we're about 35, so growing really quickly. And last month, we announced our Series A fundraise. And so we raised $30 million, $31 million actually from Redpoint Ventures and Benchmark Capital, so 2 big VC firms from Silicon Valley. And so, we also had a big med device firm participate in that round called Ajax Health. They recently spun out Cordis from Cardinal. And so we think, we've got a great investor group assembled across the best kind of Silicon Valley software VCs, as well as, med tech investors. And then our team, like I said earlier, largely comes from the industry. So it has experienced some of the pain points you've alluded to in CRM very intimately.
And that's great. I mean, I think that the domain knowledge that you gain in med tech or med device or carrying the bag, whatever, is critical in every decision and in how you go about your day. And so you mentioned saving time, and that's really, really important for sales reps, for anyone, I think, is being efficient. And so how does this help a sales rep? Can you walk us through, not necessarily like a demo, but like, what would you say to someone that wants to know a little bit more, how does this advance their ability to grow business, or what makes you guys different? I don't know how you want to handle that.
Yeah, no, great question. Let me give a case study or a couple of examples and anecdotes of how our customers are using us. So a couple of proof points. So first, our typical customer will see a $3.6 million increase in pipeline per week after they've adopted our software. And so these are sales reps. And the way we do that is sales reps are out there identifying new opportunities and starting to execute on them. And so it could be anything from, hey, I didn't know that rural hospital was doing, relevant liver surgeries in my territory, and I'm selling, liver product. Or it could be, hey, I didn't know that this, spine surgeon went to fellowship with one of our big KOLs and actually has a close relationship with, someone he trained or she trained under someone who uses our products today. So we have use cases in kind of, big territories, lots of call points where we help them discover, that ASC that just opened up down the street, or that rural hospital in the pocket of their territory that's actually really doing a lot of volume. But for customers with smaller territories that, you have a rep that's calling on 10, 15 surgeons, we help them uncover insights and suggestions about how to approach those surgeons to gain credibility more effectively. And so that $3.6 million of pipeline per week is across our entire customer base. And then another kind of proof point, we actually did a case study early on with one of our first customers, and we saw that the top 10 most engaged reps on AcuityMD. So these are reps that are using AcuityMD daily. They're logging in, the start of the week, figuring out where to go target and spend their time. Those 10 reps saw a 25% year-over-year increase in sales after a year of working with us. So, there's definitely, a great way to, the right way to use data to target and to grow your business. And we think that we've built a self-service and easy to use platform for these companies to, really help their reps go on autopilot and not having to lean in and drop in and make sure your reps are spending time on the right targets.
What are your thoughts on, does a good targeting platform or a good CRM, does it serve the user or the customer? Right. So, or maybe both, because I think that maybe is why there's always been kind of a disconnect in some of the other platforms that I've used. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, it's not a question we talked about before. I just was
it's a great question. I think I have very strong feelings about this. I think so I'm going to answer first in kind of a general, my general theory on software. And I've studied it for a while now. I think, enterprise software, so software that's being sold into businesses, is probably 20 years behind consumer software that we all use, right? You think about LinkedIn, or you think about Twitter, you think about Facebook, and these platforms were built to make it really easy for users to get the insights, the information, the content that they want, right? So they're built for the end user.
That's right.
When you think about enterprise platforms, you named a few in your windup. I'm not going to name names here, but they were built for the buyer, right? They were built to extract information from the users. The users are a commodity. The sales reps, in a lot of cases, are a commodity that management wants to oversee and extract data from, so that they can get visibility into how the business is performing.
That's right.
Right. So there's a fundamental disconnect between who the audience is. And I think that, I think that the answer is really, you have to give to receive. You have to give the end user insights, help them be better at their job in order to sort of get any feedback from them to report up to management. Like the first step, one of the biggest issues with, med tech companies rolling out CRM solutions designed for other industries, right, is that, you have to get the reps to adopt it. It's a huge uphill battle to get the reps to change behavior and adopt. Yeah. Did you have a lot of experience with that?
Yes. As a user, as a sales rep on the ground floor, as a manager, trying to compel my, team to input their information. And it was kind of like a running joke. Like, did you log that in Salesforce? It's really because it's, as I mean, this is a common theme. I think it's a garbage in, garbage out. And so if you don't put in the information, you can't really get anything from it. And so I think a common question that I would always field more on the manager side was like, why are we putting this in here? Why do I have to put this information in here? And it's like, well, and then I have to put on my tap dancing shoes. If an executive comes into town, you want them to have all the, the updated call points and all the touches on that customer. And that makes sense. But it's like this, you're putting in, you're adding time and man hours during the day for these people to do this. And if they don't do it right after the sales call, right, a lot of the pearls are lost for some what if scenario where you may need to, get that information, versus what it sounds like you guys have something different. And so what makes you?
Yeah, I mean, imagine a CRM with all the data loaded into it, and with advanced analytics that can help the sales rep, sift through all that data and find that opportunity that would previously take a lot of, phoning a friend, or, showing up to a hospital and seeing who else is on that OR board, or like seeing who's on the schedule, or, Googling around, asking for information. What if we took all that power, all those Excel sheets that marketing teams send out, on a Friday afternoon, and say, here's your target list for this new product launch. Right. What if we took all the power from all those insights, because there is a tremendous power in the information and data out there, and packaged it in a way that the sales rep didn't have to input anything. And, on their phone, they're able to log in before a case, or sitting in the parking lot of the hospital, and read up on an opportunity that they should be prioritizing. And what if by doing that, they're able to just one click start to develop a pipeline and start to quantify that pipeline. And that feeds up to what the manager sees as well. So instead of a sales rep sitting there logging information, logging opportunities, logging notes, what if they're able to communicate who they were prioritizing and why in just one click? And not only that, get some guidance about who to prioritize and why.
That's awesome. And it sounds like, or it seems like, that the reps and folks that are using this are seeing results, right? And so I think that's a big thing too. It's going to just continue to deliver that behavior if you're getting the response, right? It's like the BJ Fogg, behavior. You need a response. You need some kind of like reason to keep doing that behavior. And I think the one thing, another point, just going back to the previous question of like why people wouldn't enter information, is that a lot of some of the sales folks were apprehensive to share their mind, their knowledge of that customer or of that market, because they would feel, at least this was how they were explaining this to me, they feel that would then somehow render them less valuable. Can you speak to that? Because that's I guess I get it somewhat. I mean, it's their relationship, but if they put it out on the cloud, then, maybe it's all of a sudden doesn't live with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, first off, from our company's perspective, any information that the sales reps do save into AcuityMD remains like the organization's property. So like, similar to other CRM solutions, right? Anytime you write on top of our data platform, you own that data. So it's not like we're taking information from one organization and shifting it to the other.
No.
Where we are differentiated though is, a lot of these insights, I'm not claiming I can, our software can get to a, get as smart as a 20-year rep who's been in a small territory for, the past 20 years and knows all 15 surgeons he calls on or she calls on inside out. Like that's tough putt to recreate. Like there's no software is going to recreate that intimacy in that relationship. I'll also say that like logging notes into Salesforce is also not going to replace those relationships, right?
That's right.
But knowing what procedures a surgeon does, how often they do those procedures, where they do those procedures, that information is commoditized. That information is out there. You can go get it. The big challenge is taking that information and providing it in a usable way so that a newer sales rep can get ramped up and up to speed in a territory to understand where to go. So I guess my feedback is, there's certain categories of information and aspects of a relationship that will never be commoditized. But a lot of that basic information of like, who should I go call on at this account? And, where does he or she operate and what procedures they do? We gotta up the bar. Like, people are able to get that information out via some of these data sets.
Right.
And so that needs to become the new baseline that everyone has access to, not just the seasoned 20-year rep that knows their territory inside out. The other thing I'll say, Jay, is that, sometimes some of the most impactful insights actually come. So let's say you're in that small territory and you have your 15 surgeons. You might know those 15 surgeons inside out, but you might not necessarily know or coordinate with your rep across the country about how to connect those dots, right? Like we talked about the training trees and like who went to meds or who went to residency or fellowship and who trained under whom. It's really difficult for a sales rep to connect those dots. That's not their job. They don't know about the surgeon on the other side of the country. And so imagine automating a lot of that work that marketing teams are trying to work on today, and just having that one click away so the sales rep can say, oh, Dr. Pendleton went to, residency with Dr. Monovoukas, and, they overlapped and they do the same procedures. And, one of them's a user of ours and one of them's not. So let's figure out, a good peer there.
And that's powerful. I mean, we talked about that. Having a family tree where you could like look and see, okay, these surgeons all train together. They may be in some other parts of the country, but then you're taking that information. As you said, the data is out there, but if it's put in a way that you can then start to formulate a plan strategically and kind of with action items. I mean, that's, as a sales rep, I've been in this game for a long time. That is value. That is valuable, and it's worth, I would say, kind of logging in and using this tool. So it sounds like that's the experience that you've had. That you've got people that are using it quite frequently or are growing, and they're seeing tremendous kind of year-over-year growth. So those are good use cases. Great use cases, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say the other aspect is, because we're a software company first and foremost, and we talk a lot about like software companies versus data companies, right? Software companies, we're a software company that has a lot of access to a lot of data and partners with a lot of data sources. But because at our core and in our DNA, we're a software company, we can start to do some really interesting things like identify, hey, these reps are having a ton of success. Let's see why they're having success. Okay, it looks like they're calling on this type of surgeon, or it looks like they're, reading up on the surgeon's publications before, their calls with that doctor. And their sales calls are just different because they have these academic interests or something they bring up in that sales call, whatever it is. Like, we can look at how our users, like why our users are succeeding, and start to layer that into, in our quarterly business reviews with our buyers, going back to the difference between users and buyers. We can start to, generate success stories and actually put metrics behind, hey, it looks like, 25% of your reps are doing this behavior and it's working. The rest of your reps are not looking at this section of of AcuityMD. And so we're going to retrain those reps on, how to use AcuityMD using the success stories we're hearing with your top performing reps and how they're using the platform.
That's great. And so can you speak to the gap in the industry? I mean, it sounds, we've talked, I think, a little bit about it in parts, but just what are you guys solving? Like, what are you trying to solve here?
Yeah. So the way I think about kind of the industry and where it's at, there are kind of two lenses. The first is you kind of have this with existing systems, you kind of have this, this divide and breakdown where on one hand, you have your CRM. And on the other hand, you have, a data vendor or, a company that you go to buy procedural data from, for example. And getting that data into your CRM is a pretty clunky process. Getting that data into your CRM in a usable manner that you can visualize and help the reps identify targets effectively is even clunkier. And so what ends up happening is, a marketing organization will download a bunch of data, either upload it into the CRM so it kind of gets stale over time, or they'll just keep it in Excel and send it out to a sales organization. I mean, how many of those Excel sheets did you receive from your career?
Too many. Even when we had CRM, there was always like this double, well, why are we back to Excel, and why are we making these PowerPoint presentations? But all this stuff should be extrapolated and available for reporting. And I mean, it got better. And I think a lot of it also too has to do, to be fair to the, to the incumbent, a lot of it has to do with the package, like all the different options that you could get, working with the big CRMs. So I've heard from a buddy who just started a new role as a sales manager in a company that uses it full throttle, like all the bells and whistles, and he said it was pretty cool. It worked well for them. So
yeah, totally. And I'm not saying that it can't be, and I think this is kind of the second point. So the first problem we solve is that there's this kind of divide between data and workflow. Data, take procedural data, and workflow, take managing your pipeline in a CRM. Right. That's one issue. And the problem with that divide is that it makes it really difficult to analyze that data to drive workflow. Like, it's just clunky. Like, you want it to be seamless, where your ideal customer profile, you get notified of a new opportunity and that immediately drives a workflow, as opposed to expecting a rep to open an Excel sheet or click through a Tableau report to develop that insight themselves and then log the information into a CRM. So that's the first issue we solve. The second issue we solve is something I think more fundamental to the MedTech industry. And I think the reality is, a lot of software companies think of the MedTech industry as kind of a, little brother, little sister of pharma. And they assume that their solution for another industry will fit the MedTech industry. It's like, yeah, we'll sell to pharma, we'll sell to MedTech as an afterthought. Or they think that, MedTech is like similar to selling industrials or, wholesale products or whatever. And they sell a software solution that spans, software sales, wholesales, industrial sales, automotive parts, and MedTech is just another vertical that's same as all of these other verticals, right? The reality is, are doctors accounts? Are they contacts? Are they opportunities? No, doctors are doctors, right? Like, doctors are doctors and hospitals are hospitals. And the standard, the way that other industries define their commercial process around accounts and contacts and opportunities kind of breaks down when you think about the MedTech commercial process. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So first, a doctor, let's say you want to track how often a doctor uses a product, what their product preferences are, where they went to school, where they trained, what procedures they're done. That becomes a really complicated piece of data to manage internally, right? So you can't just build a database to manage your doctor information. You're going to be doing that all custom on using existing systems. So that's one issue. Like, doctors are really complex, and it's really important to get it right and get the data mapping correct. And that data also changes over time. A doctor could operate at 3 hospitals and 4 surgery centers, and that could change from one quarter to another quarter. So it becomes more and more complex as you go along. So that's one big issue. The other big issue is the concept of an opportunity in MedTech, when like a lot of the products that we all sell are run rate disposable products like implants, right? What does like a closed one opportunity really mean for implant sales?
Yeah, I mean, it changes daily. The sales cycle is like, yeah, you want to use this product? Okay, let's use it on this case. And then the case maybe goes well, maybe it doesn't, at least in the surgical sales world. I know there's capital, there's other markets, but yeah, no, I mean, that's a great point.
So it's just a different sales cycle. And what makes that really, the reason why that's a problem for a rep, and I'm sure you've lived this, is like, you're constantly doing the math of, what are my, average daily sales? Like, what is my, average daily sales trending like? Let me project that out to the end of the quarter or the end of the year and see, like, am I on track to hit quota? And maybe I'll layer on top of that, new business that I'm prospecting or targeting to grow, right? So you have your existing base of business that you're thinking about how often, that surgeon does cases, and what the average, what your average quote per case would be. And you're like projecting that out to the end of the year, the end of the quarter, and then layering on new opportunities that you're targeting. That becomes a lot of math to like manage. And I don't know, like, you've used CRM systems before. Were you doing the math on that CRM, or did you just have a scratch pad? Like, how are you actually figuring out how you were going to hit quota?
I think it was always just like, in terms of any sort of revenue that we used in these tools, it was just kind of like you just look at it. I don't know, he does X number of cases, we can get this number, this percentage of that. And so you just kind of do some quick math to put a number. But what happens is, I'm sure you're aware, you then either way overshoot your pipeline in terms of like just numbers that are not sustainable. So you overpromise and under deliver. Or if the opposite happens and you blow it out relative to what you said, it's like you look like you don't know your market, you're sandbagging, whatever. So yeah, it was really the numbers. At least for me, I didn't pay as much attention to them as I did the cadence of communication, like when we last checked in with the surgeon, what, and then the other information either before or during that selling process or relationship building with the customer, right? Where they went to school, what they're interested in, what they're studying, right? Maybe they're KOLs for certain companies, and you can then understand kind of, okay, well, this may not be even worth going for, so let's focus our efforts elsewhere. That's what I used it for.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so man, I think it's great what you guys are doing. And I guess I don't know if I think the other questions that we've talked about a lot of the things that I wanted to discuss today. Where's this going? Like where AcuityMD today, congrats on the round, saw the news, and that's fantastic. And on the growth, where are you taking this? What's next?
Yeah. So I think, going back to the theme, which is, this is a company that was built by and for the MedTech industry, and is really the first time the MedTech industry has had a purpose-built software platform that solves a lot of the pain points and frictions in their commercial process. We want to double down and triple down and quadruple down on that. So really, looking to expand our feature set to accomplish, new workflows in the MedTech commercial organization. For example, like I mentioned, we started with targeting, right? That was our kind of first feature. in 2022, in the back half of the year, we're going to be launching a full-fledged territory management suite. So the ability of, creating territories, assigning them to reps, sizing the territory, seeing how much opportunity is in this territory, and making sure that those are fair and distributed across reps, tracking quota, attainment to quota at the territory level as well, seeing how all that rolls up nationally. That's all coming on the territory management side. We're also building a forecasting module where, we answer that question of like, well, what is my existing base of business doing? Where's it going to land at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year? And then who are my reps targeting? So layering on new business plus existing business and doing the right haircuts to make sure that we get to a reasonable number at the rep level, at the manager level, and at the national level of what number are we going to hit at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year. So that's another forecasting module. And then the last one that I'll quickly plug is, the world in MedTech sales, as is, contracts are playing a more and more important role, which directly impacts how reps target too, right? You might want to avoid facilities where you're off contract. The most rudimentary targeting strategy, right, is avoid the facilities where you don't have license to hunt. But even then, like, we've noticed that that's a challenge, getting that information out to the field from, national accounts down to field sales. So we're building a module focused on national accounts and enterprise solutions users to help them identify total opportunity size for each of their contracts, what current penetration is, and when the contract shifts, being able to notify the sales reps that, hey, you just got preferential, tiering at these contracts, or you just, ASPs just increased at, this contract, and you should go prioritize, these accounts, or we're off contract now at these other accounts, so you should avoid them. So, tying that back into targeting as well. So helping national accounts and enterprise solutions, coordinate better with field sales.
It's awesome. That's great, man. I mean, I think those, from targeting to the managing of the territory, and then that final piece is, that's going to be really valuable. And, I think it's awesome what you guys are building, and excited to see where it goes. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love, hearing from folks like you, Jay, and your perspective, and, what you've seen in the industry. And, I definitely want to plug our company and the fact that we're hiring, and want to keep an open door. If any folks have ideas for us on the product side, or pain points, things that are driving them nuts, please reach out. And thank you for the opportunity today.
Yeah, no, this was great. I really enjoyed, getting to know more about just the origin story, and then kind of obviously where you're taking this. I mean, it's exciting, and I'm a big fan, and always have been. I mean, I think this serves a need, and it's as evidenced by your raise, and hopefully this is just the beginning for you all. So,
thanks, Jay. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're just getting started here, but thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you bet. Well, so appreciate it. If anyone wants to find out any more information on AcuityMD, where would you point them?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, www.acuitymd.com. You could send me an email directly. It's Mike, MIKE, @acuitymd.com. Find me on LinkedIn. Always open to connecting with folks in the industry and hearing your perspective. So yeah, love it.
Awesome. Well, Mike, thanks so much for carving out some time today. This was great. I'm sure the audience will gain a lot of pearls, from the conversation, and best of luck to you.
Thanks so much, Jay. Take care.
Thank you all for tuning in to the Sultans of Sales podcast. Tune in next time.